was going to ask, but if you had to guess what I'm going to ask you about, it shouldn't be too hard, shouldn't it?
Let me think. Is it to do with Francis and something he said?
Yeah, you know the H bomb that went off on the 18th of December?
Is that the one about the blessings?
Yeah.
Ah, okay, yeah. I do have to think, because he said quite a few things. You could you'll be bringing up all kinds of stuff if you look back. Anyway.
Well, yeah.
But you must ask your question, because I shouldn't do all the talking.
Yeah. So, because I'm just looking at this one. I don't know if you ever read The Crux. You ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I noticed he's got this picture of Pope Francis. It's like he's put on weight.
Amplifies the raucous debates over fiduciary supplements. Oh, well, no doubt he has. I mean, if you look at him, back when he became head of the church, then he was thinner. But he's all. Listen, you've got to know, this is going to happen to us all. This is age. But I'm sure he still has good food. So, and he's now more in the wheelchair, isn't he?
Oh, right.
So if you're not really mobile so much, you're still eating. You couldn't balloon.
So what? Because I had this. There's this guy who did a. I don't know if you ever heard of. I forgot his name now. It's an Irish guy on YouTube. Mel something or other, and he did a video on that particular subject. And he had this picture of this cardinal saying something about what was he saying? Something like doomsday from the Book of Revelation. But I think he was a cardinal though. And so if even the senior people in the Catholics are talking against it, so what's going to happen?
Okay. I mean, over the history of the church, we've had people who've criticised popes for various reasons, some various doctrinal positions. That's not a problem to do that. That's not a real difficulty in Catholicism. But still, the fact is, we have a situation here. Firstly, I read the documents about what you might call homosexual blessings. Right? Read the document. You can read it in a perfectly proper Christian way. Right, because it's worded in a way that allows you to say, okay, what you're doing is, say for example, you get a person who's got same-sex attraction. He's not happy that he's got that attraction. In fact, having the attraction itself is not a sin, but he's kind of acting on it. And he wants to stop acting on it. So he goes to a priest for a blessing to give him grace to stop acting on it.
Yeah, but that's normal.
Okay, right. So this is what about two men who are living together? They want to kind of live like brothers. They want to stop this business. They want to live, it may not be practical for them to go and separate and live elsewhere. If they live in this town, that's an understandable position. Find somewhere else to live. So they go for a blessing, for the strength to live a proper life without sinning. So that's how you can read this document. And that's legitimate. The problem for me and for others is I don't think I was born yesterday. And I think the reason why this document was produced is to advance an agenda. And that agenda is to gradually bring the Catholic people around to seeing that this kind of lifestyle is perfectly legitimate. Because the German bishops are already saying that, and various bishops around the world are saying that. So I think it's to soften us up. So the document itself is okay as a document on the face of it. But when you actually use your loaf and ask yourself, why is the document produced? Then you see the problem. And that's, I think, why some bishops and cardinals are criticising. They know there's a force at work in the church. We've had all kinds of wicked forces in the church in the past. Eventually they get expelled. This will happen. It's just a question of when and how much damage can be done, because the church has been damaged by internal forces in the past, they eventually get thrown out, or they're so toxic, they break away themselves and then attack, like Luther in the 16th century, or Arius, the priest, in the 4th century.
Right, but what about if this the new force is being clever and what they're trying to hijack is, you know how you have certain things happen in the Catholic Church, like the we were talking about Vatican II, and they introduced the thing about the Muslims, and they got it into the catechism. So could it be the case that this new adversary is clever and realizes that they could try and use that system to get what they want in instead by sliding in slowly and just changing little bits here and there to eventually get what they want in?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Spot on. For example, in the Second Vatican Council, documents were formulated, and then there are drafts. Then the drafts are revised because bishops are not happy with the draft. Further revisions, on and it goes, and eventually you get a draft where you get the vast majority of people voting yes to it.
Yeah.
But that can sometimes result in ambiguity. In the particular council, the Second Vatican Council, that was the way it went. So, take the Muslims for example. It's not wrong in Catholicism to say that the Muslims worship God in this sense. That before you kind of think, whoa, what's going on? It's in this sense. The Muslims wish to worship the creator of the universe. They call him Allah, but they understand this Allah to be the creator of the universe, and it being one God. Right? Now we need not get in at this point to who Allah is and where Allah comes from. In the mind of the Muslim, they're worshipping the creator. So we can say in that sense they are, from their hearts, worshipping God, because that's what they think God is. Their name. And the fathers of the council in 1964-65 were saying what we said, like I think Pope Leo X, when it came to the may have not been the 10th, but Leo, maybe Leo II.
But X was the one who they said was in with Hitler, wasn't it?
No, that's further along. We can talk about that afterwards. No, this is going back to the Middle Ages.
Right.
Maybe Leo II. It's a while since I've looked at this. But he was in correspondence with the Sultan. And he said to the Sultan, you worship God, right?
Right.
And it'll be in this sense that we acknowledge the Muslims to be worshipping God. In fact, I would say that Muslims who come over to Christianity are coming over because they've got something that Hindus don't have. There's a bridge. That bridge is an authentic bridge. Right, having said that, we still have the problem of the vagueness. Because what you need to have said, see, the Catechism says this, directly from the Council. It's from the document called Lumen Gentium, Light of the Nations, being Christ being the light of the nations. And it's at paragraph 16 of Lumen Gentium that this is said. It says of the Muslims, this is the quote I give you, they profess to hold the faith of Abraham. There's no problem, we can all be together. And in fact, there's on YouTube in Ireland, there have been some Irish fellas who've been sort of picketing a Catholic church where the priest has had Muslims in there, a Muslim imam or something, doing their Islamic prayers. We've had Lutheran church doing this in Germany. It's like it's a scandal.
So, and they're just using the writing, interpreting it their way. To give the reason why they're allowing them in.
So this Catholic priest could use the teachings of the Church from the Second Vatican Council. The Lutheran would just use his Lutheranism. Right,
but he's saying because of the vagueness. So that's what the problem that the vagueness causes.
Now, once you've got to that point where people start saying, we're all worshipping the same God, so we can all pray together, and we can have Muslims saying prayers in the Vatican gardens, as was said a couple of years ago. Then we need the Holy See to do what it usually does, but it always takes time to step in and clarify that in the sense that, of a general sense, the Muslims worship the Creator, but in a specific sense, their religion is a false religion. Because that's what we were saying before. We said the Protestants hold a false religion, the Jews hold a false religion, And obviously the rest of the heathens have a false religion, and they must become Catholics if they wish to be saved. It was so the precise statements have been made, but the point of the papacy is that one of the points of the papacy is that periodically things need to be restated, which were stated a century or two or three or four before.
It's like sending Jesus again. Like sending Jesus again.
Kinda. But people forget. They have to have it said again and again. Look, reminded. This is the faith.
Yeah.
And I therefore see you're quite right that that when you've got statements like the Muslims worship God, you can have all kinds of problems if you don't clarify these matters. But we have this in all kinds of ways in the Catholic Church right now since the Second Vatican Council, and it's but because of various reasons, we're not getting those clarifications which we used to get, those restatements of the ancient faith which we used to get. But that is the mystery of iniquity, as we would say. You can have, Jesus says in Luke's Gospel, when the Son of Man returns, will he find faith on earth?
Yeah.
Well, there's got to be a reason why he says that. Yeah. Something's got to be going downhill, and it's this. Now, this is though the Church, from our perspective, its doctrines remain there, clear as daylight, unsullied. They're in the most recently the 1992 Catechism. They don't change, but you can still blow a mist over them so that people don't see them very well. Priests might not speak of them at Mass. Theologians, bishops might actually deny them themselves, but you never get an official statement denying them.
Because actually, can I ask one thing then, what you're saying there? So, with regards, say, them allowing the Muslims to do their prayers in the building, the church building. Yeah. So, isn't there anything in the Catechism saying that you mustn't bow down to a false god? There's no text.
Oh yeah, it's the Ten Commandments, isn't it? Effectively, but
so why can't they then use that against those Muslims? But didn't someone try and directly use that?
Ordinary Catholics do, but there's a problem in the Church in Ireland. Many problems in the Church of Ireland. Many problems in the Church across the West entirely. So what we're not getting, which we will get, but not yet, is a state of affairs where what is consecrated ground, the Catholic Church, is being violated, sacrilege is taking place. And it's not just with Muslim imams going in, you have worse. You can have other stuff going on in there. But these things are going on unchecked. But we've had in the past, centuries and centuries ago, rank heretics who denied the very heart of the faith, taking possession of churches. And it sometimes would require imperial troops of the Catholic emperors to flush them out. Or sometimes if the emperor was a heretic himself, it would take another emperor before order would be restored. So, things have happened all over the centuries, and now we're in a particular phase. Eventually this will be sorted out, because one thing if a church has endured for 2,000 years, and even the 1992 Catechism is totally affirming what was affirmed back at the Council of Nicaea and other councils, that this church endures and cannot be corrupted in the long term, but will have corrupt men in the short term, as we have had many times.
Right, but with how it is now, because what I can see, when the way things are going in the world, is that it's like people realise that it's easier now to entrench yourself because of technology and communication.
Yeah.
So now it's easier to communicate quickly with people around the world.
Yes.
So with this current situation, what could be done by the Catholics, especially considering now all these bishops who are in on it, they've all now got instant communications.
Yeah.
So obviously if someone tried to make a move in one place to try and counter, that would get back to headquarters straight away, and they'd be able to move instantly. So seeing how more difficult it is now, do you still think that there's something that could be done?
Actually, I don't worry about the fact that there's mass communication and instant communication now. There was sufficient communication in the ancient times, or Middle Ages even, for it not to really be much different from the situation we have. The point is that if in Rome, let's put Rome to one side for a minute, if in one region of the Catholic Church the heresy is being promoted, it will take time for it to be resolved, because it always has taken time. If you have the capacity for the promoters of the truth to be stamped on more quickly in the past, yeah, sure, that's a fact. But on the other hand, you have less capacity of heresy hiding itself than in the old days. There may have been a time back in the time of the late Roman Empire when you could have heresy developing in Alexandria, and the Catholic Church wouldn't know about it in Northern Europe for quite some time, and it could spread and entrench itself. And so it takes a lot to get it out. We had it worse in the past, because when we had the son of Constantine the Great, Constantius, he was an Arian. So he said that Christ is of a similar substance to God, homoousion, as opposed to of the same substance as the Father, homoousion. Constantius supporting that meant there was massive persecution of the Catholic bishops, like St. Athanasius, across the Catholic world. But that was dealt with in the end. So if we can deal with that, we can deal with anything. And then, so I would say this, the uniqueness of our problem today is that in Rome itself, at the pinnacle of the church, we've got a man who is not speaking clearly on matters upon which we need him to speak clearly. Some would say, well, look, isn't that a big problem? Because the church, east and west, for 1,000 years and more, for 1,000 years, over there in Byzantium, in other parts of the Eastern Roman Empire, they'd say the Apostolic See in Rome was the source of the rule of faith, the guardian of the faith. It was absolutely looked at to find the truth. So what is it now? Well, I'd say this, that if there were ever a major heresy, like some heresy about the nature of Christ or the Holy Trinity, then Rome would speak absolutely clearly. What we've got now is what I might call, in my sophisticated way, diddling about over trivial matters, blessings for homosexual couples and so on. This is like not insignificant, but when you look at the great heresies that have emerged over 2,000 years, this is small beer, small potatoes, and it will be dealt with. It still needs clarification, still needs resolving, but Rome is the guardian of absolute orthodoxy, and I have no reason to doubt that is still the case.
Right. So these bishops are speaking against it. So I suppose they're going to have to now organise something.
Are you off now, Vincent? Probably. If I can come here, I'll let you know. Yeah. Catholic Reconquista. Just think of Spain and Portugal. Think of El Cid. All right.
You're going to be okay?
Yeah, you send me a message if you don't remember what it is. You can't find it.
You're going to be okay?
Yeah. Take care yourself. So, say it again.
Yeah, so I'm just seeing what these bishops, because I just remember that quote, because it was it's just what he said. He was saying some really harsh stuff, and when I've seen a Catholic bishop saying such heavy words, it sounds like he's really, he's ready to fight. But then, since obviously the headquarters knows he said it, they can't just leave him, because if he's saying what he's saying to the people around him, something's going to build up. So obviously, what I'm wondering, so what is it that either can happen, and who would it come from? Would it be from the bishops, or does the hierarchy, the upper hierarchy, have to organise whatever?
Yeah, every bishop in Catholic theology is regarded as a successor of the apostles.
Right.
So he has his own jurisdiction. The Pope is the chief of the College of Bishops, the Worldwide College of Bishops.
Yeah.
So he has power. Only he has power to depose a bishop.
Right.
But it must only be done in extreme circumstances.
Right.
Now, there's a bishop called Bishop Strickland, an American bishop, Joseph Strickland, who has been deposed because he said things which were regarded as unacceptable. I can't remember exactly what it was now, but nonetheless, these were things which were regarded as unacceptable by the Holy See.
When was that?
America, somewhere in the United States.
When was
about
deposed?
late last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
That wasn't that bishop, what did he say? No, we talked about something else, didn't we? There's something else we were talking about, and one of the bishops, that's for abortion, isn't it? It wasn't that bishop, was it?
I don't know if any bishop has supported abortion.
No, there was something that they said in relation to that's right, Nancy Pelosi, that was it.
Ah, right.
Yeah, it wasn't that bishop who didn't allow her, and then she...
No, I'm not aware, I can't remember, but that wouldn't be a source of the Pope,
right.
Removing a bishop from his position.
Yeah.
That would not be a source of that. He might, somebody might complain, but that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
No, but here we have had, over the centuries, bishops who've really gone against the Pope. There's usually reconciliation, but these things happen.
Yeah.
So I don't really worry myself about that. What I worry myself about is that the time it's taking to straighten things out. And every Catholic in those times when things were a problem would have the same feeling. God has his own timing. Things always got straightened out, and they will again.
Yeah.
Because after all, if you've got like 19 centuries of things getting straightened out, then there's no reason to doubt that's going to change.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be as if we were back in like the 4th century with the Arian crisis. It's possibly to understand that maybe we're really going down the toilet now, because that was only like 300 years since the crucifixion.
Yeah.
But now it's 19, 20 centuries. What we need is, affirmation of the traditional faith in relation to morals. Not just kind of like for example, a year ago, or 2 years ago, I think it was 2021 actually, the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith said that, I think, under no circumstances can you bless sin in that, in terms of a couple who are not a natural family, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, according to the Bible.
Yeah, well, yeah, but even, I'm just saying though, that the church itself, the head of the church, head of the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith, said this.
Right.
This document that came out that you just showed me on your phone, I don't think it references that.
Right.
So if it had done so, and said, oh, by the way, yes, you cannot bless sin, then that'd be fine.
Yeah.
But its failure to do so is not fatal to the veracity of the documents, but, as I said at the beginning, makes people like me, who are not born yesterday, suspicious of what's going on.
But I was going to say, here's a classic thing. You can always tell what's going on, because something will come out, and all you've got to do is wait and see what happens, and observe to see, okay, what are these people who might have supported it, what are they physically going to do? If you suddenly see that they're now moving and doing what you expected, then you know that was the purpose of why they did it.
Often, I think that's absolutely right, quite often. So for us, people like me, a Bible-believing Christian will say, well, look, the sins described in the Bible, particular sin we are engaging with here, which our church says is one of the sins that cries to heaven for vengeance. Right?
Yeah.
That's pretty strong stuff, right?
Well, Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, that's our phrase, cries to heaven for vengeance. So, when you've got that, and it's not being referred to as such at the moment, what a born-again Christian could rightly say, well, why should I be paying attention to the Catholic Church's teachings when it's talking like this? I'd say simply this, I go through the what I said to you before about the church always has its phases, but that it never, from Rome, you never get a doctrinal teaching of error. And that's only this church as an institution has endured for 2,000 years. There's no other institution on earth that's lasted this long, just on the basic human level of looking at institutions. That's astonishing. We've not hardly ever any soldiers except those nicely dressed Swiss guards who've endured for 2,000 years as an institution. That's amazing in itself. But it's a testament to the indestructibility that Christ promised his church, and that all men are called to belong to this church, because there they will find that there will be no deviation into weird doctrinal stuff. So if you were, for example, an American Protestant in the early 19th century, you're just following the normal traditional stuff. But then Protestantism comes a guy called Joseph Smith, and you think, well, gosh, there's a man. He said he's seen an angel and all that, and you could possibly go off that way because he's affirming the Bible in principle. He's just saying, well, he's saying he is, and he's just saying, oh, there's a new book as well for our times, a new thing for our times. And a lot of people went with it. No Catholics went with it, right? This is the thing. Only Protestants went with it. Then you get another character, Charles Taze Russell, in the late 19th century, about 1879, I think. Oh, look, here's so I'm not got a new book now, but here's my interpretation of the book. Loads of Protestants went with that. No Catholics did. And this is a testimony, just in the practical realm, of how the Catholic Church shields its people from the Looney Tunes which so beset Protestantism. Go forward to Germany in the 1930s. There was the creation. I mean, Hitler wasn't interested in Christianity. He was totally against it in all its forms.
Oh, but he had his version.
Well, this is what I was going to say. He didn't mind playing it up, because the German people were Christian, but he himself was no fan. He'd abandoned it when he was very young. He said abandoned Catholicism when he was very young. But a lot of Germans who were very sympathetic to the National Socialist Party, they created the German National Church.
Apparently they're Protestants.
They were Protestants. I mean, loads of Protestants didn't go along with this, but it comes out of Protestantism. And loads of people joined this German National Church, but no Catholics did. So again, in modern times, an example of how the church shields people from the Looney Tunes. Okay, this is just a practical thing. So when a Protestant, though, says, oh, you Catholics, you exalt Mary, you have this, you have that. Actually, though, we never go so far as to talk about an angel Moroni, or have an entire Book of Mormon, or say that, the Archangel Michael is the brother of Jesus, or is Jesus, or something like that. No, we never go that far, because we're shielded by the church. Practical thing here, though, and this is why it's very important to me, and should be to all non-Catholics who believe in traditional ways of life, very important the Catholic Church gets its act together. Because if you're going to war, if you know you've got an enemy advancing on your country, you know the enemy's organised, right? He's got his troops, his dispositions, he's got his tanks, his aircraft, it's all organised. If you're just like Dad's army, and you've got like a bunch of sticks, well, everyone might have a rifle, right? And think, but there's no organisation. They could attack, you could be like 50 million men with rifles, but no organisation. They could be like 1 million men, they're going to defeat you, because they're organised and you're not. This was actually how Justinian's general Belisarius won so many battles against often superior forces, because though he had a smaller Byzantine army, he could defeat his enemies. That's great generalship, and you see that in other times as well. The 300 at Thermopylae who defeated the Persians. It's about organising. Judas Maccabeus although he had God with him, still a great generalship defeated the Greeks again and again. Now what I'm getting at here is not a little discussion about military stuff, but to say that unfortunately the Protestant world is disorganised. It's in tens of thousands of different groups. But the enemy is not disorganised.
That's true.
The enemy controls the newspapers, the cinema, the television, controls governments. It's highly organised.
Oh, and universities, I was going to say as well.
Yes, universities. And it's put Christian civilization through the shredder in the period since World War II. Here we are. Protestant America has been able to do nothing about it. The Protestant parts of Europe have done nothing about it. Or one should immediately say the Catholic Church has done nothing about it. We must understand that with the Protestant Reformation, the Catholic Church was weakened as an institution. Whether the Reformation was right or wrong, the Church was severely weakened. Before the Reformation, certain things that are happening now would not have happened. Even if one could say we worship Mary as a goddess, certain immoral things that are happening now would not have happened under our watch. We don't worship Mary as a goddess. But anyway, now, what we had right until the end of the 1950s was a highly organised Catholic Church, and therefore strong. An example, if you have kids, you could sit your 8-year-old child in front of the television set, and you could go out. If he's watching a film made between 1935 and 1964, there'd be no problem. A Hollywood film, no problem, by and large. You set your kids in front of a film that was made after 1965, big problems. You can't do it. The reason is not because Hollywood was just nice, really cute and cuddly and stuff in the 30s, 40s and 50s. No, it was nasty in the 20s and 30s.
I've seen some of them.
But what happened was Catholic men, including a particular priest, went to the Hollywood moguls and said, look, you carry on pumping out this immoral filth, this violent filth, we are going to ensure a Catholic boycott of the cinema. Now one might say, well look, Hollywood's rich. How would it care about a Catholic boycott? They still have loads of other Americans who would go anyway. Well, this was a propitious time because Hollywood in the early 30s invested a lot of money in talking pictures.
Yeah.
They were in debt up to their eyeballs.
It was after the 20s, isn't it?
Yeah, and there was the Great Depression, so people didn't have much money. So at this point, when the church said to Hollywood, do as we say, it had to give in. We got the production code. But that shows the organised power of Catholicism. The Protestants had tried to do something, but they failed apparently to achieve what we achieved. What I'm getting at here is that's a small example, but a big example of how you can protect the culture from a predatory force. When with the Second Vatican Council, which we began talking about, you saw a real set of problems rising up because those people within the church who are enemies of the traditional Catholic faith gained momentum. Right. They were there, been there for centuries, but the popes kept them down. But they came out in the time around the council. They weakened the church, and Hollywood, getting stronger, was able to start breaking the code and putting filth out on the cinema. And around the same time, the television was doing the same thing. So not just cinema now, every day, 24 hours a day, filth is transmitted into families every day without relenting.
Oh, well, it wasn't 24, I think, up until...
Yeah, you may say cable television, but I'm exaggerating if I say right back from the mid-60s. No, of course. But we get all the days, all the times when people would be coming back from work, watching the television as families, all this trash, and need not be explicitly pornographic. It just has to be subtle to undermine Christian traditions. also there was, and get this, the people who were adults in the 1960s would retain their values that they obtained before mass communication, but the kids would be imbibing this all through their lives. And one of the subtle things would be to say, for example, to young people, your parents don't know what they're talking about. You know, you rebel against them. The whole hippie movement, the rock music, it's all about rebelling against parents. And of course, kids are going to think, yeah. But in fact, it's just a trick to break down Christian values. Because parents transmit true values to their kids. The parents got the values from their parents. They got them from their parents. And all this is from the age of Christianity. But if you can insert a break between parents and children, as happened exactly in the 1960s, these kids now get their values from the cinema, from the television set, from the rock music producers, and those values are not Christian values.
No, because actually I was going to say something about that, because I remember speaking to someone else as well, that one of the reasons I see why they have to go after the children so much nowadays is because all those times before, like when you used to have revolts, and especially like the peasants' revolt over here, and they had the big ones in Europe, didn't they?
Oh yeah.
And when you sit and realise why those revolts happened, when the people were in whatever trouble they were in, where they were poor and starving, the thing is, when they were doing that, their children were there right beside them. So as the parents were complaining, saying, "Oh, we're in trouble, what can we do?" The children were literally standing there with the parents, hearing what the parents were saying. So all the trouble that were the people in, the children took it in. Whereas now what they do is by dividing the children from the parents, and also the other important thing is making the parents comfortable, even though they're not really. You get to stop that sort of rebellion building up in the people to actually stop the things that are causing them to be in the bad position that they're in.
So explain that a bit more. I wasn't quite sure I was following entirely there.
No, I'm just saying that if the children were being taught more why it's bad, the things that are happening now. When it comes to teaching, what I've noticed is that it's the people that children listen to the most at the beginning are their parents. So if you can stop the parents from teaching them about that, and then also divide the children by giving them something to do different from their parents, then you can if you do that for the whole population, you can then stop rebellion at all. Everyone's too segregated to rebel properly like they did back in the past.
I totally see what you mean, actually, one thing one can say is this, just going slightly off religion, but nothing's off religion really. And for a Catholic especially, because we believe we have a Catholic civilization, which not just a religious belief, it's a total society, a total way of life, the church. Now, in Britain, you know how we've sent troops into the Gulf with the Americans in the 90s? And then we've sent planes to attack the Houthis a week ago, and before that.
Didn't know about it.
And how we're giving support to the Israelis.
As well,
and we bombed Gaddafi with the French. But all these things that we do with the assistance of other powers, especially the Americans, one might think, well, the biggest American war after Korea was the Vietnam War. They're committing 50,000 troops in 1965, and Saigon finally collapses in 1975. Why didn't British soldiers go to Vietnam? Why? Because Americans besought the British to send troops to Vietnam. Even one brigade, that's all. Because it would show that this was a kind of, not just an American effort. Well, Harold Wilson, who was the Prime Minister of Britain from 64 to 70, and he was saying that Dean Rusk, who was a Secretary of State, I think at the time, he was saying this to Wilson, look, give us some troops, just a few. And Wilson said, no. Why was Wilson doing that? Not because he was a super wise politician. No, I think he was by the standards of the crowd that we've had in the past 20 years, Wilson was brilliant. And he was intellectually brilliant, but not my cup of tea, but there we are. But Wilson said, look, if I send troops to Vietnam, the Labour Party will split because the left will not have it. The left was strong, and the left was strong partly through the trade unions. What I'm getting at then is an example of, because we no longer have strong trade unions. The reason we don't have strong trade unions is because we no longer have industry. This is a deindustrialized country. And it's, by the way, one of the reasons it's deindustrialized is because going against Catholic principles, we've agreed that we can ship out our jobs to other countries, and we don't actually have to have work, real work, for men to do to support their families. We can live off a kind of financier's world, financial manipulation. Nonetheless, without industry, you can't have strong unions, because strong unions can basically stop business in its tracks. But that's no longer possible. You may be a shop workers, workers union, but if you shut down Next or Selfridges, who cares? There's no power there, no political power.
I was going to say, the only two left are the taxi drivers who they're sort of strong, but the big power for me is the lorry drivers. They don't want the tanker drivers.
And the railway workers and the tube workers. So the thing is, people aren't anymore organised into powerful civil society bodies where they can say no to the government. Now, the unions could never force the Conservatives to do a particular action, to take particular steps. But they could do that with Labour. But Starmer is supporting, and this is not to say whether somebody's right or wrong, I have my own views, but Starmer is supporting the actions that have taken place in the Middle East now. Labour supported Blair supported the Iraq War. There's no longer a Labour left to say no to this, and that means that those above us, the real masters of our lives, can do as they please. Whereas in the past, in the 50s and 60s, it wasn't quite like that. Ordinary people had a way into the power structure through the unions. All right, so having said that, when we go to what you said about how there's all this division, we're atomised. Mrs. Thatcher said there's no such thing as society 40 years ago. We're all individuals, we're consumers. But if we are, that's not the road to freedom. That's the road to take von Hayek's expression, the road to serfdom. He saw that, free enterprise is the means to freedom, whereas socialism is not. And he's right in a sense. Socialism is the way to serfdom. But if it's the kind of free enterprise that we have now, not the idealised version of, say, Hayek, then we are going to be serfs, and we are becoming serfs. So I interrupted you.
Oh, no, I was going to say, you mentioned something about the unions, and it's like that when the unions were operating, the children was, even though it was after the 60s and the television had its influence, because they hadn't done the critical thing, which is to get the women out of the house, the children were still coming home to at least one parent who was there, and they were still getting their their worldview from that, even that one parent, and the dad obviously came in later. But it's when they successfully managed to get the woman out. Now that's when they finally their mission to fragment everything, sort of took off.
That's a very important part of our perverted system, to make everybody a consumer. So you want to get women out of the household into work and therefore spending. So that's a very important thing for the kind of capitalism we have, which is a perverted form of capitalism. In the Catholic Church, we have believed in free enterprise, and we have an idea of subsidiarity, whereas down the lowest organisational level, the ordinary people's level, if decisions can be made there, that's where they should be made, not the high level of government, as a Stalinist would say.
Well, they got it from the Bible, anyway. Take the humble guy.
But the socialist approach is to put everything to the top. and let the governments organise things. But nonetheless, in the kind of capitalism we have, it's to break up family life. Everybody becomes a consumer, and great corporations effectively will be dominant. Now, what's happened, as you said, the mother's not any longer in the home. That's important for the point about women becoming consumers, but the most important point is that the nature of the family's been destroyed. And so father isn't father. He's the man who may have created the kid, but he's not like become a father in the traditional sense, and she's not a mother in the traditional sense, because she thinks she can have these kids and live on welfare, or if she's very lucky and professionally skilled, she might be able to earn her own living, be with these kids.
They usually don't have kids. That's the other thing they're trying to do to the women.
That's the other point. Yeah. Make them consumers, but they don't have kids. And so it shrinks Western society. When you couple that with mass immigration, you overturn Western civilization. You replace it with something else.
And the important thing, like we were saying about the rebellion, when you bring all the immigrants in, they're all desperate.
Yeah.
They don't want to ruin each other.
No.
So as long as so the only two things they can either do is like go crazy and burn the place down, or stay in their groups and listen to what the people with the money say. And so as long as they know that obviously they try to burn the place, they'd be inconvenient. So that's why most of the immigrants settle with just doing whatever they're doing. But of course, any big plan that the controllers have, they will question it, because if they don't acquiesce to that plan, then the trouble comes back again.
In the United States, where this is extremely explicit, the border is left open, and millions of people from all parts of the world, as well as Central and South America, are pouring in.
Oh, it's in Haiti.
Yeah,
no. If you're from Haiti, then
okay, but they might get across to Central America then and get in that way, not directly from Haiti. You know, though, what this is about is they're taking people who've got no skills. They can never contribute to the United States.
And can't speak much English. Some of them
That's it.
Here,
but they go along and they get money. So what's the benefit? Well, there'll be voters for a welfare system created by the Democratic Party. And there'll be voters for the Democratic Party. Make it the party that will always be in government. And no doubt the Republicans, who are just basically the party of the elites, will eventually conform to this system, and you'll have a more fused uniparty. Democrats and Republicans being two cheeks of the same arse, you might say, as George Galloway would say. That's America. We don't have it quite so explicit in our situation, but altogether it means people who come over, they're not kind of like forming groups. Except the Muslims are. They form groups that can that challenge the power structure. Now, that is good in one sense. Overall, I'm not for Islam, of course, but they're the only group, it seems to me, that are seeing themselves as a unit, which is different from the power structure. And that'll have interesting implications as we go forward over the decades. Not that I think we've got many decades left, but as we go forward it will. So all in all, the powers that be have shredded the United Kingdom and the Western nations, and they've got it exactly where they want it, and the only way from here is down. It's down. And if we weren't Christians, we would say it is a hopeless situation, because now, even without being a Christian, you don't have to read the book of Revelation. Atheists are stupid. I say this to you because they don't seem to be willing to see that even their world is heading for destruction. We've got our British army chiefs who led us in the retreat from Afghanistan, led us in other catastrophes. They say now we've got to prepare for war with Russia or China. Like this country of an army of only 80,000 men, which is about to lose its steel industry, is supposed to be preparing for war. How on earth can we fight? But we just received American missiles just now, nuclear missiles. Yeah. They were sent out in 2008 because things were calming down with the Russians. Now they come back, so we're target number one without any significant conventional forces. We can fire at a bunch of tribesmen in Yemen, and that's it really. That's it. So the country is making itself a target. We're picking fights with Russians, possibly in the end with the Chinese, that we cannot win. And this is the insanity of our country. So the book of Revelation, when it depicts not only a great apostasy, but also widespread destruction.
And it's funny you're saying that we're even getting to witness how things are changing right between our ears and eyes. Over there.
With the Muslims.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can see it's changing.
Now I think, personally, that the Muslims are going to be... There's something called the cunning of reason. God uses Satan's plans to his own ends. So, for example, there shouldn't be masses of Muslims in the United Kingdom.
No.
A Catholic state would never allow that. St. Thomas Aquinas said, when you're considering who comes into a state, you've got to consider the general welfare.
Yeah.
So you don't allow heathens, pagans, into a Christian state.
No.
But of course, this is far from a Christian state. So put all that to one side. Just useful to know what Catholic teaching is.
Well, anyway, in the Bible, it was allowed if they converted.
If they
converted.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and you've not got to persecute the stranger in the land.
Yeah.
That's in Deuteronomy, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the Muslims are here in large numbers, and they're organised, and I think this is God's plan. Because these people, see, for Catholics, we have the faith as it is, and we have something called private revelation. Not the public revelation, which is in Scripture, and it's what we call sacred tradition. Private revelation doesn't have to be followed by any Catholic.
Right.
You just forget about it.
Yeah.
But you've heard of Fatima, Portugal, where the Blessed Virgin Mary allegedly appeared to tend all the people together who saw it. That was to mostly a Muslim population.
Isn't that the one they got the pictures? I know there's one.
Photographs.
Yeah,
photographs.
Yeah.
Now there's these events, and others, and there are prophecies sometimes given that we're heading for a difficult time, but one could say that possibly, that there's going to be a great event which mankind will experience, and that will be a mass conversion moment for Muslims. Muslims are converted in large numbers in Spain during the Reconquest. They converted, as born-again Christians say, through dreams of Jesus. Even now, all over in the Middle East. There's absolutely nothing. Their religion is a bridge to conversion, but in God's time.
Yeah, because it's the closest.
So I think they're here for the purpose of providing a solid Christian bulwark against the satanic governments that we now have in place all over Europe.
Yeah.
Right now, they're a problem. But if you switch that and that ethnic solidarity that they have, that kind of religious cohesion they have, you switch that and you look at it as a people suddenly converted in large numbers, then you've got a power that can actually bring Europe back to Christianity. God will do that. If he doesn't do that, then there'll be huge clashes between Europeans and those people.
That's the Bible. That's what Jesus said. Nations shall rise against people.
Okay, well, this may be so, but I think that anyway, we're heading in this decade for a kind of major war anyway, and that will change everything. So so I couldn't predict what will happen with Muslims, Hindus, Jews, Buddhists, whoever's here, whoever's in Europe. It'll be kind of like everything will be up in the air. But it's not as if this is a Christian nation anyway. As if we can lose something.
Well, you've got Charles.
Yes, but Charles is wishy-washy, isn't he?
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying in name.
Yeah, I think the great thing about this is what makes Britain, in many ways, the greatest country in the world, despite everything, because it has formally a Christian monarchy. It has bishops in the House of Lords, so it has Lords Spiritual embedded in the government system. And it's there's the opening of Parliament, which is a very religious thing as well in many ways. State opening of Parliament. Yeah. So we have a Christian constitution that goes back to the Catholic Church, and it's been modified because of the Protestant Reformation, of course, but nonetheless it's still deeply Christian. Now, Charles's son says he's not really interested in Christianity, right? But
which one?
The one who's going to be king. William. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. What matters is not the particular king, but the institution of monarchy. If it remains a Christian institution, then
Charles said he's got to be defender of the faith. Charlie said he's got to be defender of the faith, meaning Muslims and Buddhists and Confucians and Catholics and all sorts of people. Anyway, I'm very pleased to hear from the Vatican that Pope Francis is recommending that gay couples will now be blessed in the Catholic Church, and something that Lord...
We were talking about this.
Well done. Something that Lord Soper did 60 years ago, to my knowledge. 60 years ago, he blessed gay couples.
Right.
60 years ago. It's taken a long time to catch up. Well done, Francis. I'm all for Pope Francis. I could become a Catholic if this goes on anymore.
You said that before. You said that before this.
I mean it.
So it's another reason to become a Catholic. But I'm afraid I've bad news for you. It's gone too far. I'll not rehearse what we said about. Well, I'll just say yes. The bad news is that he didn't say that. And the blessing is for to help to get out of sin, not to remain in sin.
I was wondering, because that would be too explicit, wouldn't it, if he actually said that directly?
Yeah. There's already uproar in the African bishops about this, and they said they won't implement it. I was saying before you came to a guy that when Pope Vigilius, back in the reign of Justinian, in the 6th century AD, Pope Vigilius signed a particular document. The bishops of North Africa withdrew their association with the papacy. Right? So now, that was temporary. But now, back in the 21st century, the sub-Saharan African bishops are withdrawing in many ways themselves to some extent from association with this document that's come out of Rome. So we have these family feuds. Things should be resolved.
So in terms of the resolution, do you think it's going to be something gradual, or do you have to wait for a specific thing to happen?
Well, firstly, this Pope will die, right? He's late 80s. He'll resign or he'll die. So it's a question of his successor. Will his successor be worse? Will he go down this road in a more explicit way? Will he be similar, or will he be, changing things for the better? I cannot know, of course. But maybe you don't find it interesting. I find it interesting that as we move into this new phase of the... Did you know? You remember how when Benedict resigned, a few hours after his resignation, lightning struck St. Peter's twice. And you know that back in 1984, because we're both old men, back in 1984, when the Anglican David Jenkins was made Bishop of Durham, and he said the resurrection did not happen, and lightning struck and almost destroyed York Minster, where he was made Bishop of Durham. You remember that, or you've forgotten that?
No, I don't remember.
Yeah, it happened, 84.
Right.
Yeah. The Minster had to be rebuilt in part where it was struck by lightning. Serious thing. Why out of all the cathedrals of England would the Minster have been struck on the 3 days after that heretic was made Anglican Bishop of Durham? Coincidence? Well, get this then. On the birthday of Francis, the very birthday of Francis, just outside Buenos Aires. And you know he's Argentinian, and Buenos Aires was where he was cardinal, archbishop. Lightning struck a statue of St. Peter. It destroyed the halo and destroyed the keys.
That's a good shot.
Yeah, on his birthday. So what I'm trying to say here is, obviously God is paying attention to what's going on in the world. That's the first thing. Second thing is, since the resignation of Benedict, I think that lightning that struck St. Peter's twice is a sign that things are changing. The Catholic Church has gone on a certain way for nearly 20 centuries. Now something's happening. It's not that it can collapse or it can teach dogmatic heresy or anything like that. It's that Satan has infiltrated in a way that's extremely deep now. Back in 1973 or 71, Pope Paul VI said the smoke of Satan has infiltrated the church. So he knew something was going on. But infiltration is not conquest.
No.
Because Satan had infiltrated in the 19th century, and the Pope started to make condemnations of certain tendencies. Because now the enemies of the church were no longer leaving the church, they were staying in. Like you said, isn't that the clever thing to do? They were staying in. And Pope St. Pius X wrote a document called Pascendi, which talked about this problem and instituted what was called the Oath Against Modernism. This was a particular heresy it's now still with us, and it's growing and growing. So we have modernism almost victorious. It can never be victorious, but kind of making great progress since the resignation of Benedict. And when you look at what happens in the church, look at how the West is going. As the West is the West is the product of the Catholic Church, from the fall of the Roman Empire right up to the Protestant Reformation. Europe was built by the Catholic Church, for better or for worse, as I say impartially, but it was built by the Catholic Church. And Rabbi Jonathan Cahn, he's a Messianic Jew. Anyway, he's on the internet. He's an American.
Right.
And he was writing about this document that chap was saying, oh yeah, it supports blessings of it. And he said, look, the Catholic Church and Europe are so closely associated that you look at how Europe has fallen apart morally, and you look at it from Kahn's point of view, the Catholic Church has fallen apart morally. Well, I don't go as far as Jonathan Cahn, because I'm a Catholic, but I think he was overstating it. But the fact is, the Catholic Church is going a certain way, and civilization is going a certain way, and we're moving towards warfare, which we're explicitly stating, war with the Russians.
Yeah.
And the thing about Russia is it's got a special place. Remember I mentioned Fatima? Fatima, where the Blessed Virgin Mary, we say, appeared. So up to 100,000 people. Well, she told one of the children there, once the child had become a grown woman, told her in 1929, when she was a nun in Portugal, now ask the Holy Father to consecrate Russia to my Immaculate Heart. Why Russia? Well, Russia was communist, and communism spread everywhere, caused all kinds of problems all over the world, and it's still doing so. But the key point is Russia has a special place in the divine plan for some reason. Now we're not talking so much about war with China, we're talking about war with Russia. It's got a special place, and we may end up at war with Russia because we did not gain its conversion early enough. Yes, there's been great progress. Now it's not just, and by the way, I don't want to come across as saying it's evil and we're good. No. We have done the dirty on Russia. We fomented the overthrow of the lawfully elected President Yanukovych in 2014. We fomented the coup, which did that and led to a Western-backed government. We supported the shelling of Donetsk and all those areas where Russian-speaking Ukrainians lived for 8 years. before Putin invaded, we told the Ukrainians they can join NATO, which is a direct threat to Russian national security. We kept telling him this, and he said, don't do this. And we caused him to invade because the Americans have done the same thing. Again, they did it to the Dominican Republic in 1965. They did it in 1983 to Grenada. They will try to do it in Cuba. They will invade when they see their national security at stake. And the Russians did just the same. But nonetheless, Russia is central, according to this private revelation, to the future of mankind. So I foresee the British, who are focused on Russia, it's like the devil is moving our focus in this eschatological way. And we are going to end up in a catastrophe with the Russians of our own making.
But I was going to say though, that it's interesting because I never even thought that they would even contemplate it, because the way things are now, and you've got the people who are like making all the billionaires making all their money, and they seem to just enjoy making the money. It's not that the money is actually useful for doing anything with. The fact that they want to have a war in Russia, it means it must be a scam in some way, because they're not going to have the war and then all their billions disappear. So there's going to be something about this war which is going to happen so that they keep their money.
What it is,
there's going to be some
there's a desire. I mean, there can be all kinds of reasons. I think Satan's behind it all anyway, but there's a desire to integrate Russia into the Western system. Remember, Russia was pretty much raped. After when Boris Yeltsin, the drunken premier, was ruling it, our people went in. A certain group in Russia stole the assets because it was all a nationalised economy, and this stuff was privatised and then ripped off. So we get the guy who bought Chelsea, right? How could he do that? And then there's another guy who was found dead in his palatial residence in southern England somewhere. Berezovsky, I think his name was. He was another one who got fat on ripping off Russia, and that's ripping off Russian people as well. So there's that. But Putin stopped that, and that meant people who want to make a load of money out of Russian materials, they've got tons of raw materials. It's ripe for the ripping off, but you've got to get Putin out of the way. You've got to integrate Russia like you've integrated other parts of the world into the UK-American system. And so now with this war, we've got like a depleted population in Ukraine. We've got vast areas of land, farmland, rich farmland. Guess who wants to get hold of that? BlackRock, all those kinds of organisations.
And also, like with Iraq, they're going to come in and get all the money for building the buildings back, isn't it? So the more shelling happens, is the more money they get.
You make a load of money by selling weapons to the US government, which then uses them and asks you for more, so you make more money that way. And then you make money on the reconstruction, and you acquire all the land dirt cheap, because now it's kind of like got a lower value than it would have done before the war, and the government that remains is in your pocket, so it'll sell you the land cheap.
And then once you get the cheap land, build all your stuff up and then sell the land for super expensive and profit.
So we can see the game plan in Eastern Europe.
Because it sounds to me like what they somehow hope they can defeat the Russians and then just get all of their raw materials and literally,
that's right.
But obviously Putin's the only one standing there, and obviously the guy supporting him.
Yes, just as Gaddafi tried to stand up to this sort of thing as well. But with Russia, they're dealing with a different kettle of fish. It's not only a vast country, but now it's because we blew up the gas pipeline. Russia turned to China. Now they get their alliances building up, and all it needs is a formal military alliance between China and Russia, and we dare not touch that country. We dare not touch it. But at the moment, we're doing everything we can, have been doing everything we can for the last several years to weaken Russia so we can possess it in the way we talked about. But I just think the game's up. They've lost. You see, our aim, of course, was defeat Russia, defeat it, bring down its armed forces to make it what we want it to be, a place where we can access what we want. but they've won in Ukraine. The Russians have won.
Right.
And it's just a question now of our baloney-speaking generals. They were the same. I remember watching them when they were talking about Afghanistan. Oh, we just need another year to get the Afghan army trained up, and then we can let them get on with it. It was all baloney. I mean, you could tell at the time. They're saying the same stuff now. Oh, well, they're not saying that we've lost, that the Russians have won, but they have won. And it's just a question of what, like this cretin, Sunak, a disgrace to the nation, goes and pledges another £2 billion of money which we don't have to a force which is defeated.
Is that American or British?
Britain. Oh, the Yanks pledge more.
Right.
We pledge a bag of potatoes,
yeah,
but 2.4 billion for us is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's pledging it to a defeated force. And it just goes for Zelensky's wife to go on shopping trips in Paris. That's what our government is. And the British never had a say in this. Just as we never had a say in any of the wars that we engage in. And we're always lied, every war through World War I to the present, we're lied to about. So this is our future. Destruction, because finally, eventually, we're going to get our arses kicked. And it's going to be with the Russians or the Chinese. We just, with the skin of our teeth, we managed to avoid it in the Second World War. But we're not going to avoid it forever. And this is because we are fundamentally rebellious against God.
Yeah, but I'm still interested in what is like I was saying about the scam, because there has to be a scam, because the rich people are not going to lose their money.
No, they won't. Oh no, they make money left. Hand over fist, they make money in the Ukraine war.
No, but the problem is, if you attack Russia will, remember, they've got subs.
Yeah.
And they've got people in other countries, so
yeah.
they can do assassination.
Okay.
So Russia's more dangerous.
Yeah.
You can't really play with them in that way.
The idea is not to actually engage in a nuclear war with the Russians. The point is to have a war off-site. That is neither on the United States territory nor on Russian territory.
Yeah, it can't be. If you do a Russian territory, that would be.
Yeah, we always had our wars in Africa and other Asia, but it was a proxy wars. Or Vietnam proxy war, Korea proxy war, and this Ukraine war is a proxy war, post-Soviet proxy war. But if we keep them proxy and they don't go nuclear, and we don't have direct American, Russian involvements, then the money can be made by the elites, impoverishing the ordinary people. Look at the Germans. The Germans, of all the nations of the West, the Germans are the most ill-treated because their government has impoverished the German people by saying to the Russians, we're going to be with the Americans and we're going to buy fuel from the Americans and not restore the pipeline which the Americans blew up, which gave German people cheap gas.
Americans got enough fuel.
The Germans, Trump was saying to the Germans, get your gas from us. Right. Don't get it from the Russians. Liquefied natural gas can be brought over by ship.
There's a ship all the way across when you can just get pipes from the other side. That's nonsense.
Yeah, but you see, fuel. The links between Germany and Russia were a threat to the United States' control.
Yeah.
And that had to stop. So to blow up the pipeline was a win-win, because it was done for the excuse of the war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
But this is toying with world war, to do this sort of thing. So you see, our leaders don't really care, because men like Zuckerberg, because they're part of the elite, they're digging underground, vast complexes in which they are to live when it all kicks off.
Yeah, but the Russians have got way. That's the reason why I'm saying about the Russians is that because of the technology. Because like the Americans like to go on about their bunker busters.
Yeah.
I think the Russians ain't got any of that.
Oh, well, you're right. They got hypersonic missiles.
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying that the rich people, like you're saying, they can't just attack Russia.
No.
They have to do some sort of roundabout.
That's exactly it. The idea is always go roundabout. Always go roundabout. And that way the rich protect their wealth.
Yeah.
You might put ordinary British or American lads into battle.
Yeah, we'd have to go and fight, obviously.
What is so impressive to me is that because of social media, so many American ordinary lads and British ones are saying, no way would I fight. No way. Because they're seeing through all this now. Seeing through it all. And I think it'll be quite interesting to see if they ever try to bring in conscription again. What will happen? I mean, I wouldn't fight for a country like this, which is so and I consider myself an uber patriot, so that I actually question the rightness of going into war against Germany back in 1939. I mean, I'm really deep on this. I'll talk about it another time. But to go to war to protect what this country for a Muslim Britain at the end of the century, no way. What British lads should do is just stop joining the army. Stop it, because our leaders are traitors, and if they don't have men, and the only men who will be in the army who really are patriotic potentially are the Englishmen or the Scotsmen or the Welshmen or the white American. The others aren't. So if you say, right, I'm not joining up, that's the thing that can bring change about. When I was saying about trade unions are gone, we have no thought, no power. The only power there is now, don't join their armies until you get a patriotic government. And that's my answer.
And I think that's the other thing about it is that one of the things that the people, the normal people, could do to help to stop their evil plan. But the thing about it is, because both of us believe in God, we know that God knows what's happening. But the feeling I get is that even though we're both part of the church, there is stuff that God expects us to do on the ground.
Yes.
So we're supposed to actually go and manually do stuff. We're not supposed to sit on a chair and do nothing. So if some evil thing's going down, you give us the knowledge, and that knowledge we're then supposed to go and tell as many people as we can.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I think we've got this was a Christian kingdom, and so when you're a Christian subject of a Christian kingdom, you are no longer like we were before Constantine. Oh, that's right, my friends. You no longer as we were before Constantine. You actually have public responsibilities as a Christian, because you're part of the Christian setup, Christian Christendom, Christian kingdom. So yes, I think it's really important that Christians do. The Catholic Church we have the spiritual works of mercy, like preaching the gospel, praying for people, and the corporal works of mercy, like praying for the sick, clothing the naked, feeding the hungry, visiting prisoners, so on. So there's all kinds of things you've got to do as a Catholic, and because we don't believe in salvation by faith alone, we believe in good works are essential components of salvation. We must do stuff. Now, of course, good works often is most commonly like you're helping people who are in a bad way, but it also can mean you actually get the truth out there. You speak the truth as well.
But actually, his one work, I remember whenever I try and mention it in the church, he never gets a good reception, and that is what happened to Stephen when he. Because the way I say it when I talk to people is that he was chosen as one of the
deacon, wasn't he?
Yeah, to help out
with the food.
Giving out serving the table. And so when I usually speak to people who most of that just sit in church, is that his job was to serve tables, but then when you read on, it says that he's having a dispute with those people from the different synagogues. So I always ask them, so what he was doing there, was that wrong? Him having the disputes, because his job was to serve tables, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think the way I see it is, of course they've got to take over the administration of the church, but they're still. You would never just give food to someone. You'd give them the gospel as well. And when you start doing that, you're going to get into disputes. So it would always be his job to preach, but the specific role was to ensure that the church community was looked after in its bodily needs. So I see.
So I use that because usually whichever church you go into, it's always a minority that does any kind of evangelism or any kind of community work. But when I read that, see that he's one of the leaders, and he's doing the community works, he's doing all that, but also he's doing the disputing, because that's one thing I know, a lot of churches I go to, they're trying to avoid that, because I can tell that what it is that the leaders are scared that the people, because they don't have proper knowledge, when they try and talk to someone else who has a bit of knowledge on the other side, they can end up getting confused. I think that's what the leaders are scared of.
They're dead right to say to people who don't really have much knowledge, don't don't go down that road. But there should be people who are trained, like Stephen would have been trained. Then they should do that. And everybody, you should try and train everybody as much as their capacities allow, because it's got to. St. Peter says, doesn't he, give a reason for the things you believe.
And so, but it's the way that sometimes I might be having a discussion with someone, and I've noticed there's even some people who they don't even like when that happens. So it's as if they think that all evangelism should be is go out there, give out the leaflets, and only talk to people that agree with you. If someone disagrees, then just try and avoid them. But we can see with Stephen, he fought the ones with his understanding, who were coming against him and who did disagree. So I just get the feeling that what Stephen did there is kind of what the church has to do to try and help with all this stuff that's going on, the evil stuff that's happening in the world.
I mean, perhaps you could say people who aren't really in a position to debate, if they're in a position to hand out leaflets, then fair enough, let them limit themselves. I guess the best thing is people should follow their strengths. And the problem is in our churches, at the Catholic Church particularly, people are not doing even that, handing out the leaflets. So we're not, and Catholics do not get taught to speak the faith. Now, in the 1950s, there was a certain understanding of the way things were, and so a Catholic would speak to other Catholics. We got lots of converts just by ordinary people in the work, like the Muslims do now. An ordinary Catholic would know the faith because of the way it was taught. But since the 1960s, that's gone out the window. So we need to get back to that.
Actually, I'm just wondering about that, because when I see, or when I hear about like Catholics, even when I spoke to some Muslims who were ex-Catholics, I actually asked them about how does the teaching go, and they were saying to me that it doesn't seem as if when they're a child that goes to a Catholic church, there isn't really much teaching going on.
No, there isn't. Next to no teaching going on. Certainly at Mass on a Sunday, almost no teaching. At school, very, very little teaching.
Yeah, because that's where it used to happen a lot, didn't it?
I went to Catholic school all my life, right? Near the end of my time at school, I was an atheist. I mean, let's see, from about the age of 13 or 14 to 17, I was an atheist. And that's through Catholic school all my, and these are not trash Catholic schools, good Catholic schools. And not private schools. We're rich, but good Catholic schools.
Yeah, because you used to have a lot of them.
Oh, we do have loads of schools still, but they're not teaching the faith. Because I know I've taught in Catholic schools, so I know what is going on.
Oh, so they have changed the curriculum, it's just different.
It's been lousy since the end of the 50s. It really is. So Catholics will come out of Catholic school not knowing a thing, because when you're a kid, it goes in one ear and out the other. You have to keep drilling it to get it to stay in the kid's mind.
Like the Muslims.
But if you're vague about it, it won't stay in the mind, because a child needs absolute black and white clarity. And that's what they get in the other subject areas, but not in religions. So they come out, know nothing. So Catholics, they may become Muslims, they become Jehovah's Witnesses. A load of Catholics become Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons. We are the one that generates a lot of these heretical numbers, because we give a basic Christianity. So people are not like atheists; they've just got a general idea, and all you need is someone to pounce on them.
Just a version of God. That sounds good.
Look, Jesus, But there's this other book called the Book of Mormon. Let's talk about it. Or the Quran, or whatever it is, I mean, so many born again Christians are ex-Catholics.
And Muslims, like I say, because I spoke to four of them, all four of them are Catholic, ex-Catholic. And it's all this. This is the biggest problem we have. It makes the thing we started talking about, talking in our conversation, that point about the blessings of the homosexual couples. That's
tiny insignificance compared to this business of Catholics not knowing the faith. Now, fortunately, because of the internet, all these apologetics websites have grown up. And if there wasn't the internet, there'd be nothing. And remember, the internet has only been prominent since about the beginning of this century.
Yeah.
I remember there was a dial-up I was using in the late 90s.
Yeah, 90s.
So let's go back to 1995. Before 1995, next to no internet.
Yeah, it was only text-based as well back then.
Right. Yeah. So that means Catholics had no source by which they would get apologetic teaching. There were some in America. Like, I subscribed to a magazine called Catholic Answers, which used to get sent to me every month from America. But I found out about that by accident. But that was an American outfit, nothing in Britain, as far as I know. So, you know, millions of Catholics knowing nothing in my generation and beyond. There we are. Anyway, shall we stop now then?
Yeah.
All right. So it's good to talk to you again. I'll get off and I'll probably be back in March.
All right.
So keep on trucking and
we'll see if they what the rich people are going to be doing about this war by see if we get any more news on that.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Right, my friend.